So today is September 11th, 9/11, and for me, it has a very different importance to it. Um, Today, 30 years ago, was my near death experience. People call it a near death experience, but it was just a death experience. I died. Um, and so for me, 9/11 has a different meaning, and I usually reflect deeply on this day. Um, and so I figured it was a good time to make this video or remake this video because I've shared this story before. I've traveled around the country speaking at near death conferences, talking about the afterlife, talking about my experience, but I figured I'd post a video on it. So in 1994, I was 14, and me and my family piled in our car. And on September 11th, 1994, we drove to go school shopping. On the way there, there was a crossroads. And at that crossroads, a man had decided to cut across real quick in front of us. He was an elderly gentleman and he panicked and then stopped dead midway through cutting in front of us. My father's quick reaction time made it so that the car would bank off from his car and then back into our lane, seemingly everyone being safe. But on the other side, there was a large car show, and there was a man in a canary yellow Stingray who was several cars deep, and he was not going to be waiting. So he pulled out from his lane into our lane and just floored it and went from 0 to 75 in a couple seconds. He hit us head on, bang. And because of the impact and how fast it was, it bounced both cars back, and his foot never left the gas, so bang, he hit us again. It was very quick though. It was bank the car into our lane, bang, bang. And the impact was so hard that the motor came in and crushed my father's leg and smashed his chest, and he died on impact. My legs were up against the back seat. My femur on my left side broke clear in half, and I almost bit through my whole entire tongue. The manner of my death was asphyxiation. I was unconscious and bleeding in my mouth, and it was closing up my airway. Nobody knows how long I was like that. Inevitably, they cleared it when they used the jaws of life to pry my body out and resuscitate me. But the better part of the story is the experience. I remember leaving my body. I remember the impact. I remember everything in detail of the accident. I was wide awake. The moment of impact, the second impact happens, and I remember leaving my body. My father was airlifted on a chopper, and I remember being on the side of that chopper looking in at my father, and we were ascending, and I was looking down at the scene. But as we broke through the cloud bank, all of a sudden, all of that disappeared, and I was in a pure black environment. It was very cold. I think I was naked, and I could see my breath, and it was vast and empty as far as you could see. At this time, I was an agnostic style person, teenager filled with angst. I had spent much of my youth in and out of trouble in school, but also in and out of churches and church organizations, church communities. I loved God, and I loved singing, and I loved the experience of church and the scriptures and feeling the holy presence as much as I could. But after a while, I became disillusioned, like many people do, because I saw the hypocrisy and corruption in my own circle. So I left that, and as most angsty teenagers do, I vowed that God didn't really exist and we didn't really know him. So here I am in the blackness, knowing that I am now dead. There was 100% knowing that I was dead. I began to sob. And as I began to sob, this living light, which is beyond description, Most of the experiences in a near-death experience are really beyond human words and uh, ability to comprehend, but it was a living light, and it moved in from every direction at the same time. And it was glorious to behold. It was warm and just full of love, and it began to swim in through the darkness in all directions and start to surround me. And as it did, it spoke to me. And when it spoke to me, it spoke in a million voices of all genders and ages at the same exact time without hesitation, with different tones and harmonies at the exact same time, just perfectly pitched above or below the other. So, as if you gathered up the population of the earth, put them in a football stadium if that was possible, and asked them all to say the same phrase at the same time, but do it in harmony. Which it's hard to get three people to sing harmonies, let alone millions. And so, this harmonious voice of a million different kinds of people spoke to me and it said, "Don't worry, child, I have you." And at that moment, everything went white, and I felt this deep warmth. And all of a sudden, I was sitting in a chair and still in a vast expanse. But the expanse wasn't cold, it was warm. It wasn't black, but it was unfathomably large. And it was as if I was in the middle of this, just sitting in a chair. Now, I don't know if I was actually sitting in a chair. This is just my viewpoint and perception. My perception was that of I was in the middle of this vast expanse and in some form of sitting posture. And in front of me was what I can only describe as multiple screens, multiple perspectives. Kind of like in the sci fi shows where you see the computer nerds with thousands of different screens kind of curving up and curving around so you can see everything happening in the world at once. And in these screens, if you will, again, they're not really screens, but this is how it felt to my perception. In these screens, there was lots of activities happening. And if I focused on any one screen in any one direction, I would be sucked into the experience. Kind of like in Harry Potter when he looks into the thing and it sucks him into the moment. So I began to peer into these screens one after the other. Some of them would take me to my past lives and show me who I was in another life. Some of them would take me into the future and show me some future events. But a lot of them would show me events that happened in my life up until the age of 14. And one of them stuck out. It was a incident on the playground in elementary school. I was bullied by a group of bigger guys, when I was 10 years old, 7 to 10 years old. And they would push me over all the time. And I had thought to myself that if I push another kid, maybe I'll just be like them and they won't hurt me anymore. And so I did this. I shoved the kid, and this seemingly worked in this weird elementary way. They left me alone. But in the moment of death and peering into this moment, after I pushed this kid in my lifetime, I walked away and nothing ever happened after that. But in this moment where I'm re experiencing it, I am like hovering above the kid that I pushed. I hover and I follow him through the rest of his day in school, how bad he felt, the pain and the heaviness of his heart. I could feel that deeply as if it was my own. I followed him through his whole day. I followed him all the way home, where he told his mother, and I felt his mother's heaviness mixed with his heaviness. I felt her ancestors, her mother and father and grandparents who were in the beyond, and I felt their heaviness of heart about what had happened to this kid. I felt the angels that surround the family and beyond, and their heaviness for the ancestors, and their heaviness for the mother, to the heaviness of this child's heart. I felt all of this heaviness. I felt this pain deep inside me. Not like a pain of shame or even a pain of grief, but a pain of like, oh my Lord, so many beings are feeling the weight of this, something that I have done, this little activity. And in that moment, all I could remember was, I want to go back. I need to go back. I need to tell this person I'm sorry. I need to love this person in such a way that not only does it lift their own heaviness of their heart, but it lifts their mothers, their ancestors, and the angels' hearts again, so that everything can be restored back to love and goodness. And I would have given anything in that moment to just go directly back and fix that situation. And I went through several other situations like this, again, feeling the weight and the heaviness from the angels all the way down to the people, and these little actions that I had done that had caused such a weight. And so I went through lots of this, and then inevitably, this was part of my life review, is seeing all the things that I did that caused harm, and then seeing the things that I did that brought love and goodness to the world. And then inevitably, I saw my mom and dad kissing for the first time outside of a high school dance, smoking cigarettes. Uh, I saw myself from a different angle in the beyond before being born, looking at my parents. I rewound all the way back to where I was in the heavenly states, if you will, speaking to two gigantic beings and saying, I pick these two people. This is who I want to be born to. This is the place I want to be born. These are the parents I want. And they asked me, are you sure? And I said, yes. This life that I will have with these people will teach me all the things that I want to be taught, all the experiences I want to experience. They'll make me the person that I am, and they will lead me to have the life I want, doing the work that I want when I come back here. And so these angels, these large beings said, okay, then it is. And that was me rewinding all the way back through my life, all the way back before I was born. There's many other experiences in there. It felt like I was there for, 100 years. Then after that experience was done, everything kind of fell away. And what I saw was what I could perceive or conceive of. Again, it's very hard to describe the afterlife in words because language just doesn't do it justice. But I was in the beyond now, everything had faded away, and it looked like the surface of water at nighttime. But reflecting on that water somehow from somewhere was universes and stars, and within the water were little flecks of color everywhere. Now, the water had no dimension, it had no bottom, it had no top, it had no sides. Again, very hard to describe. But I'm in this. I'm in this ocean of cosmicness where it can hold galaxies, it can hold multiple realities, and there's these flecks of color, all different kinds of rainbow color, just little flecks, almost like if you were to throw glitter into the air and watch sun hit it in different ways, you'd see different light And I noticed that I did not have a body. I was in this ocean of cosmicness, but I did not have any physicality. And it racked my mind, like, how can I be something but have no form? And I felt so good in this cosmic ocean. And in an interesting way, it kind of moved around and kind of came up into what I could describe as a being, but it wasn't a being. And this thing really far away from me, but also kind of being the holder of this whole cosmic ocean. I could tell it was looking at me and smiling at me very deeply, very lovingly. Yet again, I couldn't describe what it is. I couldn't describe how I knew that it was a thing and that it wasn't me, but somehow it was holding this vast cosmic ocean that I was in, and it was part of the ocean. The ocean came up and rose into it, so it was part of the ocean that I was now being somehow part of. And so this thing was smiling lovingly at me. I could see it from afar. I could feel it. I could feel its love. I could feel its, hold. I could feel its embrace and its nourishment. And as I was there contemplating how I didn't have a body, but somehow I was still existing, I could see that I was just glowing with this cobalt blue light, that I was this cobalt blue fleck of light. And I could hear a sound. Um, I could hear a sound, a frequency. And when I just let go and relaxed into that frequency, I literally would dissolve. There was no more me, there was no more color. I would just go into and become part of this ocean of cosmicness. And then I would almost kind of like when you wake up, I would come back to and be like, oh my God, what just happened? And so I began to panic. And after a couple times of experiencing this, where somehow I became nothing and sunk into the everything of this cosmic consciousness, this cosmic ocean, and then coming back to have like my own personal consciousness where I was inside of it instead of being part of it. Another colored light began to talk to me and said, calm me down and relax me and try to tell me to, relax and, it's okay. And it started to guide me. And I had this experience for some time where I would allow myself to relax and just become part of the cosmic ocean that I was part of and just release and have no personal consciousness, but just being part of the huge pool, huge ocean that I was part of. And then there was other times where I would have my own personal consciousness where I was in it, but I had a sense of self and I could see and understand different things that were happening within this ocean of consciousness. And then at some point, I heard a voice say that it was time to go. And I said, go where? And it said, back. And I said, oh no, I'm going to stay right here. This is home. I want to be here. And it began to give me information about you're going to go back. These things are going to happen to you. You're going to receive different names in this life. You're going to do different things in this life from now on. You will be changed, and your life will be changed forever. But we will always be right here. We will always be with you, and you can come here anytime you like. And so all of a sudden, I woke up to a soft woman's voice telling me, "It's okay, it's okay." And I woke up in the back of an ambulance as they were resuscitating me, giving me CPR, inevitably clearing my airways and putting oxygen on my face. And I came to, and I was in and out of consciousness several times. I had several other weird experiences in between then and the surgeries that I would undergo directly after the car accident. But I wanted to share this near death experience because there's a lot here to unpack. And when anyone has a near death experience, or as I call it, a death experience, it's something that will change you forever because you will spend your life remembering, unpacking this forever. And there, being that I am a psychic medium uh, and a shaman who does lots of work on different planes of reality, different states of consciousness, talking to the beyond, bridging that gap for many people. My life is completely different than it was back then and where I thought it was going to go. Um, and so I figured I would share this on the eve 30 years ago when I had this experience. These experiences are always life changing and they always bring about some deep inner core changes for people. And for me, it did. It changed the course of my life, it changed who I am, it changed my outlook on reality. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's something that at least lends some education or touches your heart in some way.